Welcome to another edition of Chat Nap with AI Chatterbox Chuck and Howie, a podcast dedicated towards metrology. It's a beautiful day where I'm at. I'd like you to introduce my co-host, Howard. Howard, how are you today?
Life is good at this moment, right? You had peaks and valleys in your life, good times, bad times. Right now, it's good.
Yeah. How's the weight loss going? You look like you lost another pound.
I haven't. I actually gained 7 pounds because I went to Houston last week.
Oh
And they
my
had
God.
such incredible food, and sure enough, I indulged a little too much. Back on the schedule this week.
Well, I've lost another 2 pounds, so
You're going the right direction.
I'm going the right direction. You're going the wrong direction, so that's good. So
Temporarily.
I would tell you that our marketing folks have told me that we've had a slight increase in listens. So we're getting the word out. So people are starting to find out that we're got something to share. And to that, we have a very interesting podcast today. We have another CEO. As our listeners know, season 2 is mostly dedicated towards CEOs that are in the metrology community. And today we have with us is going to be Jon Sanders, who is the president of Additel. I'm excited to speak with Jon. I've known Jon just off the cuff, at different conferences. I've seen him, had very small conversations with him, but you've had a lot more conversations with Jon over the year than I have.
I have, yeah. So back in around 2016, when I lived in California, he was in charge of the region for NCSL. And he
Okay.
set up a regional conference at the Keysight in El Segundo. And he invited me to speak there. So I did a speaking session at that location. Met some new people. That was a new acquisition for Keysight to expand their capabilities across more than just electrical RF type equipment. So the lab tour was nice. So I've known Jon. Actually, I knew him maybe a couple of years before that and interacted briefly with him. But ever since then, I've interacted with Jon quite a bit more. So it's been a
Well, we
good
probably should tell our listeners who Jon is. Jon is the president of Additel Corporation,
Yeah.
headquartered in Brea, California. Jon got his education in Utah, BYU, and then to the University of Utah. He spent a lot of time at Fluke. Of course, that's where I know Jon from, is from the Fluke Corporation.
Yeah. Many years with Fluke.
Many years with him. Did a lot of marketing with them, et cetera. And now, like I said, he's with Additel. He's the current president of Additel. And I would point out that Additel is also a sponsor of NAPT. So we love our sponsors. So I probably remind me, Howard, if you can, that I want to thank him during the podcast.
You bet. We also rep Additel equipment from Transcat, so we're very familiar with their equipment. Really great equipment. This is not a sales pitch for Additel. I'm telling you, just from experience, I've enjoyed using their equipment.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say. He's happily married. He's got 4 kids.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
So I'm not gotten into those detailed conversations with him.
The little bit of conversations that I've had with him over the years, he likes to be outdoors. He's very an outdoorsy person. He's unfortunately, he lives in California, so we're going to have to tease him about living in California. And I'm going to assume that's not his choice, but maybe we can tease him about what it's like to live in California.
Well, here he is now. Tease away.
There he is.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. It's great to be with you guys.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Appreciate having you.
I love that you're doing this. I love that metrology conversations are happening in this form. It's a podcast is not, it's great that it's there, and nice of you guys to be pioneering the way on this. So thanks for having me here.
We're one of a few who are doing this, and I'm glad to see it myself, right? Because otherwise it gets stagnant. And we need to find new ways to liven it up and try to keep people interested and involved. And I think this is just one of those other ways to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So as Jon, as we shared with you when we were kind enough to accept our invite, season 2 is really dedicated towards the CEOs. And so we're really grateful, for you coming on board, and hopefully we can get some insight about what it's like to lead a major corporation and what makes you think. Maybe you can give some younger managers out there some advice on moving forward. We'd like to talk a little bit about your career, how you started out in the metrology business, and how you became president of Additel. So with that being said, I've introduced you basically real briefly, Jon, about your education. I've told him you're a family man, you like to be outdoors. Can you tell us to start us out with exactly how you got involved with metrology? Why did you choose metrology? Did someone, jump you off the street and pull you in the back of a van and make you go to work at Fluke, or how did you actually get involved in the
No,
metrology
we're
business?
resorting to those techniques now because it's getting more difficult. So
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
that's right. That is a
Metrology
challenge in the
traffickers.
industry nowadays. Yeah, so my start in it, I definitely, there's just not many people I think that come out of school or thinking I'm gonna go into metrology, right? Like that's something that doesn't cross people's mind when I tell people that if I try to explain to them I work in the metrology industry, they start talking about weather and meteorology, and so
How many times
a
does
lot
that
of people
happen?
just
I could just get $1 for every time, right?
right. Yeah, no, it's no doubt. So I jumped on board with my start was with Hart Scientific. So if you know temperature calibration equipment,
Oh yeah.
back in the day they were one of the leading brands. And so
You were in Utah at the time, right?
I was in Utah.
You
Yeah,
didn't move to
yeah.
Utah for that job, correct?
Actually I went to school in Utah, and
Yeah.
so I was at Brigham Young University,
Uh-huh.
and then I was just looking for a job. I was brand new coming out. I'd had quite a bit of sales experience,
Mhm.
and so this position opened up, and I took the job, and I thought, I didn't think I'd make my career in metrology, but that was the start, and so that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of great mentors there at Hart, and I started off doing sales. And I think what kind of clicked for me was, and probably what led me a bit to where I'm at now, is I learned right away that the customer that I'm speaking to is extremely intelligent. They're very bright. They know measurement and they know this industry. And if I can't kind of come up to speed with them and talk the same language and to be able to not be a sales guy, but kind of a consultant that can talk to the application and talk to how they're doing things and add value, I just wasn't going to be successful. So I jumped
Mhm.
right into the technology, um, taught by a bunch of great people there in American Fork, Utah, at the Hart Scientific facility, and
Yeah, so you worked with people like Tom
Why?
Tom
Wyatt.
Wyatt,
Yeah, thank you. Tom Wyatt and
yeah, Mike Coleman,
Darren Dow. Was he there at the time? Darren?
Dallin,
Dallin, thank you.
or
Dallin.
Dallin Baugh he was the sales manager at the time. Yeah, he was great. He was a good mentor for me. Yeah, Tom Wyatt, spent plenty of time with Tom. Jack Zhao, who's the CEO of Additel. I'm the president of Additel. I report to him. He was there at Hart Scientific making fixed point cells and SPRTs.
Yeah, yep, I
And
remember that.
so we had a tremendous knowledge base there. And that was really fortunate for me because I could go as deep as I want in terms of learning and understanding things. And so I did several different jobs at Hart Scientific that later was acquired by Fluke. And I went into kind of the product management role. I did marketing.
Mhm.
I became a manager there, doing logistics and some other things, international sales. And then Jack came over and started up Additel, and him and Dallin were basically the two guys there working.
Right.
With one other person in production. They called me up and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come join the team." And I took my wife out to California to visit and chat with them, thinking this may not be something we would do. We decided to do it. That was in 2013, and here we are now. When I came on board, I originally started doing marketing for Additel, and that was a ton of fun. I've always loved marketing, and Jack gave me the opportunity to run the business, and so glad to be involved. And I feel very fortunate to still stay in this community of metrology, and also, to be part of this amazing growth that we're seeing at Additel.
Yeah, so now Additel makes more than just pressure instruments, right? Temperature controllers, things like that. I love the phrase that you have on there, metrology made simple for Additel.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
That's a great phrase that makes perfect sense because your products are simple to use.
Yeah, we try, and we do believe in that. It's not just in the products themselves. We hope that they're easy for customers to just pick up and start using, and it's intuitive, and we hope it makes their life better and their job better. Also providing incredible measurement, but we infuse that mentality into our production systems and our laboratory software use in the lab,
Mhm.
that it needs to be something that we can bring someone on board and train them and bring them up pretty quickly, and that it's not overly complicated.
Yeah, well, I think you've achieved that goal. From my experience and people on my team, they've loved the product, so that's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
I'm curious about different direction. You mentioned that you came into the business not being quote unquote a metrologist. And we all know that back in the day, all the metrologists came from some sort of DoD program, whether it was the PMAL programs or some type of industrial engineering programs that the military kicked us all out. I mean, Howard and I are both products of the PMAL program. So what I'm curious, Jon, is you coming from the educational side and you more formal education with management, which we had to learn. I mean, I had to go to school after I became a metrologist to get my business degree, where you
Sure.
coming from a different avenue and you had to learn the business. I'm kind of curious how that affected you personally, being a educated business person, if you will. And I don't want to use that incorrectly, but how you were almost forced to become a metrologist to be able to sell the products. So I've had the luxury of having conversations with you, and you certainly are knowledgeable in the metrology community. So tell us how that experience went for you, from coming from a formal education, non-engineering, to having to learn engineering aspects of the business.
I mean, it's taken time and effort, of course. I remember when I was hired on at Hart Scientific, that first job that I got, they gave me the catalog. And if you ever pick up any really old Hart catalogs, it's full of products, but it's full of a ton of information, uh,
Okay.
application notes and technical notes and things. And I just kind of dived into that and thought, I'm going to really try to learn this. But I think what really kind of hit home to me, coming from the business side, I wanted to be successful, right? I wanted to sell product. I wanted to do well. Um, I sat across from Dallin Baugh, Howard, who you mentioned,
Mhm.
and I remember customers calling in, and they would ask Dallin, "Hey, it sounds like you've been a metrologist for many years."
Mhm.
And Dallin would have to tell them, I'm actually, no, I'm not a metrologist, but I just learned a lot about it. But I understood that if I could raise myself to that level of credibility with the customer,
Yeah.
there's going to be some respect, and I'll be successful doing what I'm doing. And so that was a big motivation for me to jump into the technical aspect and to learn everything about ITS 90 and fixed point cells and SPRT drift, and so many different things that were at the time very related to temperature. And so that kind of forged me down that path. And when I joined with Fluke, I learned, I also started working and selling pressure instrumentation. And so
Yeah.
piston gauges and a lot of high end stuff. And of course, there's a wealth of knowledge and resource in that company. And I just
Well,
continued my
of
effort.
all the metrology disciplines for you to enter into, temperature to me, and I've been in metrology for 43 years, temperature to me seems to be one of the coolest disciplines to get into. And I don't mean
Mm,
that as a pun, coolest,
Yeah.
but
yeah,
literally the physics behind fixed point cells is just amazing to me, right? Triple points,
yeah,
freeze points, melt points, and how that's so repeatable and reliable and consistent. It's kind of, to me, if you're going to get into metrology, that's the place to start because it's just fascinating. Or maybe it's just the nerd in me. I don't know which, but that was a great place for you to start. And Hart Scientific was a great place for you to start because you were surrounded, you were engulfed in an environment that had so much knowledge and mentorship, right? And that's, I think you would have succeeded no matter where you started because you were engaged, number one, in the process of
uh,
whatever you got involved in, right? You were driven, motivated. You have proven that you are going to stick to it. Really, what do people say about a 4-year degree? It doesn't matter what the
yeah,
degree is. It's a degree in perseverance, right?
Sure.
that you can stick to
Yeah.
something and finish it, because it can be very difficult, especially with a bachelor's program. But to me, you would have succeeded regardless. And the fact that you were engaged and driven and motivated to learn, and you were surrounded by people who could help you learn, was a key to success. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've said for years, John, that to especially to the new technicians who don't have the background of understanding the measurements. Back in the day, I would always tell anybody, if you want to succeed in this business, you have to understand the measurement, understand the aspects of the measurement. And it sounds like, in your education level, that became a core of your practice of understanding the triple points, understanding all the other aspects of pressure measurements. And like I said, now you've got that educational experience, and now you've got the technical experience to bring it together. And those are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, together they were key in getting you where you're at today. Would you be where you're at today without understanding the measurement?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Those things were key. And something you both have kind of mentioned, the people that surrounded me kind of in my career have been key. If that culture doesn't exist where you want to improve your employees, where you want to make everyone around you better in whatever they're doing, if that culture doesn't exist, then I certainly wouldn't succeed.
I agree with that completely. And I argue that if you find yourself in an environment that doesn't foster that, depending on your personality, you'll go somewhere else where you can find that. Or if you
Right.
don't have the personality to drive to a different location, a different environment, you'll wither and die, right? So I agree that the environment is very crucial to learning and growing. And that's why I mentioned this, that I think you would survive no matter where you went because you're driven and engaged.
Mm.
And that's what I've learned over the years. It's not so much, it's great to have the education, the formal education, it's great to have the experience. But the thing that is the most important, the thing that I see makes people the most successful is that they're driven, they're motivated. And that's what I look for when we hire employees.
Yeah, absolutely. That's key for us too. They've got to have some self-motivation, some drive to understand. And yeah, if they come with the technical confidence, man,
Even
that's
better.
lovely. We want to have them, right? That's
Yeah.
like a bonus. But if I can find an employee that you can feel is driven, if you can tell they're curious and they want to explore and know more,
Mhm.
man, those are great employees
Agree.
and will help grow this business and any business they go to. Again, as long as I've got people here that are patient and wanting to train and help them learn, that employee will be fantastic. So
John, are you suffering as much as the metrology community is in finding, qualified people? Have you gotten to where you're training people? You're taking people fresh out of college or fresh off the boat, if you will, into your programs to train them how to become better suited for selling your products? Because we all know that we're feeling this crunch of qualified people. How are you dealing with that?
we're training up a lot of people. We're kind
Yeah,
of
okay.
homegrowing them here, and I think that's what a lot of people are doing. At the same time, we've employed our engineers to really work hard to automate and simplify a lot of the stuff we're doing. We kind of go above and beyond in terms of automation and really trying to drive things to be simple and easy so that there's not such a long learning curve. And it's not that we just want to take anyone off the street and throw them in the lab. By no means is that what we're trying to do. We want the process to be simple enough that we can do that to some extent, but we want to bring people in that can, of course, can do this, make the process so simple that they can kind of work through and work in a metrology lab. But they've got to come in kind of with that curiosity and that willingness to learn. And we've had some people that have started in production, started in packaging. Actually, one of my
Okay.
technicians now in the lab, he started boxing stuff up. That's how he started with this, but he's got an aptitude and a mind and willing to learn and explore, and worked in our repairs, and then he wanted to come over to service, and now he's doing primary level calibrations with piston gauges.
Nice.
And with without the education, but he had the right aptitude to come in and try to learn and understand.
Yeah.
He asked questions, And so he doesn't come with all the theory in the background that you would love to have someone in that position, but he's asking the right questions to learn that. And we've got a lab manager that, Eric Xavier, who's very just open and wanting to mentor and educate some of these younger guys to understand these things.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I absolutely love that. So the one thing that Howard really wants to talk about as well, I'm going to let him ask because he's a big AI guy. And if I were to ask you this question, he'd probably yell at me later. So I'm going to let Howard ask you the question about AI, how it affects you guys.
John, I'd like to ask you about AI. You stole my thunder. No, seriously, there's so many different ways that surprise me how AI can be used. Of course, you see the memes on social media that people create to create a country song that has these particular topics in it, right? And then it's amazing what it'll come up with. That's one aspect. But how are you using AI currently, or are you planning to use it, and how would you use it?
Yeah, we are using AI. My son, who's 22 years old, often brings this up to me, telling me I'm falling short in our efforts to
Keep you
leverage
honest.
AI. They're much more in tune with that, and they're growing up with that. I mean, this is the way of the future. So we've definitely used AI in terms of business analysis. We've got someone that's written software that works with our data analysis, our ERP system. It's an AI tool that allows us to crunch numbers, and it's pretty amazing what they're able to do. Where before, historically, I would have to jump. I know the systems well, so I can get the data out, but I would have to go in and craft a report and a search and to get all the data I want to find out how many of these things we've sold in Europe or in Hungary or wherever, right? And so that would require me to build a report. Now I can go into this system that this engineer's developed that uses AI, and I can ask it a question, show me the sales for this in this system, and if it'll give me the data back, and I'm like, well, okay, can you segment that into a bar chart and show that year over year?
Right. Yeah.
And it's learning to do it, and it's learning by the questions I ask
Mhm.
to give me the outputs that I want. And so in that respect, we're using artificial intelligence. In our factories, we have robotics that are often being employed to do a lot of the machining and the making of the components that go into our products. And so AI is being leveraged in that form.
All right, so that leads to a ton of questions that I have. Number one, the concept of open AI versus closed AI, kind of like open programming versus closed programming. As soon as you started talking about, numbers for the business, whether it's financial or quantitative numbers and all of that and locations,
Yeah.
wouldn't you be concerned if it's open AI, is that getting out for other people to see? You're a private company, correct? Privately held?
We are, yes.
Yeah. So you may not want that to be released outside and be able to be used elsewhere. Is this a closed AI system that only keeps your data enclosed to you, to Additel?
Yeah, this is a closed AI system. We or others, I'm sure, wouldn't want their financial information dumped all over the web, and
Yeah. For a
that's fair.
moment, I panicked for you, thinking, "Wait a minute, is this information released to the universe now?" And then, as far as robotics goes for AI, are you involved in additive or subtractive manufacturing? Subtractive being, start with material and whittle it down to whatever parts you need. Are you doing additive type of 3D printing?
Yeah, our engineering group does have a 3D printer. They use that. Yeah, we're more using it in terms of subtractive, where we're getting in raw components. We're getting in aluminum blocks, and like if you look, a lot of our pressure pumps and gauges, they all have aluminum or metal, stainless steel, or in there. And so we start with the raw components, and we machine it into what
Yeah.
parts we need, and then
So
we add
there's
electronics and.
arguments of additive manufacturing being less costly, perhaps more efficient. Do you see yourself moving towards that direction at all? Are you considering that?
Yeah, we're considering that, for sure. I don't know if we're leveraging it as hard as some companies are, but yeah,
Yeah.
we definitely are considering that. I think the benefit is that you can get some consistency there that you can't in in other ways, right? If you have humans doing a bunch of stuff. And I want to be very clear, on a big proponent of having humans work for us, right? And that's very key. But one of the reasons we brought in all the machining and everything we do, where we're starting from raw material to finished product, is because the machining was outsourced originally, and then, we would get parts in and they were just off a little bit. Well, now we're not able to produce the products to where they're making the measurements they need to make for our end customer. And so by controlling that ourselves, which still involves human capital in addition to AI, we're able to get a consistency that makes it so our products don't have high failure rates and that we have good quality.
Yeah, less rejection of incoming inspection parts through vertical integration. That's good.
Yeah.
You mentioned that an important part of your business plan is the people. And so with that, I'm curious, how important the partnerships are with the organizations that supply these people. For example, back in the day, if we go back to your beginning, you guys had a little itty bitty 8x10 booth at the NCSLI. You had a whole block at the NCSLI show. So you guys have definitely grown beyond, probably beyond your own expectations in less than 10 years, a little over 10 years, I should say. That you've grown beyond what or not. Maybe you guys saw the opportunity there and you've grabbed it. That's why you guys can control a lot of the marketplace. But the point is, you're a sponsor of NAPT, you're a sponsor of NCSLI and other organizations. How important are those type of activities to your big picture?
I think very important. They've been critical in helping us build our brand. That's why we spend a lot of money in sponsorships and doing things. But I just came back from the Temiko conference, which I think maybe some of the audience knows what that is, but it's a kind of high-end national laboratory temperature conference, and it's held every 3 years. This year was in France. We were the top sponsor for that event.
Wow.
And you could look at our product line and say, well, John, that doesn't make any sense. But we know, being able to be visible and getting our brand up there with some of the highest and most knowledgeable people is going to help grow the business in the long term. And so that goes same for NCSL and the Measurement Science Conference and other events we do. We invest in the brand to kind of get our name out there. But, in the end, you'd mentioned Chuck, you'd mentioned the people. If we don't have a good team supporting the customer and making the product, it kind of doesn't matter what I do on the brand side of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll fall on our face if we don't have a good product. And the quality of the product starts with the people here. And that's from the person answering the telephone to the person in assembly, putting the gauge together, or putting the pump together, or building the dry well, whatever the case is. Having the right people on board is critical to us growing and succeeding and making quality happen.
Right. Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention and thank you for, you guys being sponsors for NAPT, and of course, putting my hand out there and saying, please, become a bigger sponsor and all that kind of stuff. I have to ask. If you don't ask, you never get anything in return, right? So, I do want to thank you guys for that, and hopefully, you'll continue your sponsorship. But where do you feel that you guys are going as far as the accreditation of the products? How does accreditation affect what you guys provide to the metrology community?
We started off, we were small. Like you said, we were in that 8x10 booth and a tabletop up front and a few people there. Accreditation's really been critical in helping us grow. So we became NAVLAB accredited, our lab did in 2018. I mean, you guys know, you've helped set up labs or you've set up labs yourself. It takes a lot of time and effort to do it right.
Yeah.
And so we got our laboratory accredited in 2018, and you can just correlate the growth on the service side of business directly with the timing of that accreditation. It just hockey sticks up and continues to grow. And so I think that's critical. Accreditation, proficiency testing, all these things build to much better measurements and an increased confidence for the customer. And when I've had people come and work here, we'll produce the product, and then there's this calibration certificate that goes with it. which has the accredited, the accreditation organization, their insignia on their logo on that certificate. And I tell my brand new employees, I'm like, customers, you think they might be buying an instrument, but a lot of what they're buying is right here on this piece of paper. This provides the confidence the customer needs to make measurements, so they're not questioning the instrument they're using to wonder, is this really right or wrong?
Yeah.
This provides them that confidence, right? And that's a big part of what we're doing and what we sell. So it's critical to us growing and getting credibility, particularly like this conference we just went to in France. People at the National Lab are not going to, be too impressed with Additel if we're not an accredited organization. It brings the credibility there, right?
Yeah. So that segues into what I wanted to say. I'm glad that this accreditation process has worked well for Additel, but there's another aspect of it as well. And you kind of touched on it with the perception of accreditation at an international conference like that. Competitors, right? So while Transcat sells Additel product, we also provide calibration service. So in that respect, you provide the cal, we provide the cal. Both are accredited. Here's where I'm going with this. We have some suppliers who are not accredited. And when we have instruments or gauges that fail calibration, and we go back to that supplier, especially if it's a product that we sell, we go back to that supplier and say, hey, we see a problem with this product, or there's a whole series of these that are having a problem. And we're not talking the same language because they're not in the accreditation world. They don't know their uncertainty of their measurement. And that tends to become an obstacle in our discussions about why the instrument's failing, right? And so having manufacturers accredited, I think, is just as important as commercial laboratories or internal laboratories for that matter. So you can understand where those problems are coming from and compare uncertainties, and maybe that reveals what the problem is, maybe it doesn't. But if you don't have that measurement uncertainty, especially if you're an OEM, it creates a barrier to fixing a perceived issue.
That's probably part of the principle behind the ILAC agreement put forth, right?
Exactly.
That you can have accredited laboratories throughout the world in different measurement systems, be able to work together to get stuff done. Yeah.
Are you aware, just a side note, because we've talked about this with the board of NAPT, are you aware that ILAC and IAF have merged to become GLOBAC? And that change will become...
I'm not aware.
So just be aware.
Is that right?
For the audience as well.
I'm unaware of it.
Yep. Now that's happened actually a couple of years ago, but it's going to take some time for that to be implemented and for policies to be merged and new logo to be developed, right? But your ILAC logo will end up changing probably within a couple of years. So just be aware of that.
Very interesting. Okay.
I think it's going to take 5+ years.
It'll probably take longer.
Yeah. All that to happen. So.
Okay.
Well, then obviously, when we talk about that, one of the most important component, in my humble opinion, is proficiency testing. Only by participating in proficiency testing can you prove your technical competency. So that's where we talk about accreditation being vital. I think hand in hand with that goes all the requirements associated with accreditation. And that's where the role that NAPT plays, we provide that role, and we're happy to do that as well. So, but one thing that is the biggest talk of the day is risk. How are you guys addressing all the risk components in there? It seems like you take a risk just getting up in the morning, taking your car across the street to go get a cup of coffee. There's a risk in that. Do you think, I personally, I don't want to give you my humble opinion about being overrated, but do you think that the risk portion of accreditation is overrated or underrated within your organization? How are you guys handling all the risk components of that?
The way we've helped to define that is we created a tool for managing risk in the operation. So if you think of 17025 checklist for technicians and training and experience and the standards and the control of the standards and uncertainty budgets and environmental controls, all those different components that end up tying into the measurement uncertainties that you develop. Right. Those all represent risks in your process, in your business.
Yes.
So the new term risk that is being thrown around is saying, how do you manage all those risks?
Yeah.
What's the most important? How does that impact your business? And that's really what I think Chuck is getting at. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but I think that's where you're at.
My point was, we've had a risk is the conversation that's taking place like uncertainty did 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Everyone is giving their opinion on risk analysis. And I guess I'm a little bit curious how, from the CEO standpoint, where you guys are implementing it. Are you giving it to your middle managers to address? Are you addressing it at the senior management level? Where are you personally, Jon, involved with defining how Additel is going to handle this risk component of accreditation? Since we started talking about accreditation, just go hand in hand together.
We address it at the management level, and of course we have mid-management involved. In our management review, every question we ask is, do we need to perform a risk analysis?
Oh, really? Wow.
And so we're kind of contemplating that idea. And some of this analysis can be from the business side of things, right? Because at least when we go through management review, it's more than just related to the lab. It's kind of to the business as a whole. We're ISO 9001, and so we need to be looking at the organization as a whole. But we consider, risk analysis. We consider doing a risk analysis. We don't do it on every question by any means. We probably do maybe one or two risk analysis every management review. And so we've kind of infused that into our management review, and that's how we look to address and consider it. Of course, when it comes to technical things out of uncertainty budgets that are coming out of the lab, I'm going to lean a little bit more on Eric and where he's coming from. Rather than, I can understand that stuff and I can look at an uncertainty budget. I can totally get it. I can get that. That's not a problem, but he knows the nuts and bolts of it and where the risk factors are. And so, absolutely, it's something we address every management review. That's how we handle it. And then if we find that it's a high risk factor, we develop a contingency plan to, when this becomes an issue, what are we going to do, rather than figuring it out when it happens.
Well, it certainly sounds like you guys embrace it a lot more than I anticipated it. Even like you said, you're asking questions on every aspect of your audit review process. So that's fantastic. I think that's just wonderful. Unfortunately, we need to move to a different component of the show where we get personal. And this is I really like this because we get to embarrass the guest. We get to ask you some questions that hopefully we get to know more about you, Jon. Maybe there's a lot of people out there that don't know you, and this is what we want to do, is to get to know them. So we know that you're happily married. We know that you got 4 wonderful children. What are the ranges of your children, and what do you do when you're away from the office? What do you do for excitement that is not making and manufacturing pressure gauges?
Okay. Yeah, that's, I do work a lot, so there is a little bit of time though that I spend outside. So I've got a wonderful family. I'm very blessed there. My son is my oldest. I got one boy, and he's 22 years old. I've got a daughter who's 20 years old now. She just turned 20. And then I've got 2 more girls that are in high school. And so I've got a senior in high school. She's turning 18 here shortly. And then I've got a girl that's going to turn 16 here shortly. And so that rounds out the family. That actually is a great segue into what I do in my off time. I used to have hobbies, but I tell people now, like, it's kind of whatever my kids are doing are my hobby. And so when my son was in high school, it was cross country and track, and so I just dive in full with him on that. I've had some of my girls have been in dance, some's been very heavy into soccer, and now volleyball with my youngest. And so those are kind of my hobbies. Maybe it drives my kids nuts, but I just kind of dive into their sport and learn about it and be engaged as I can.
You're an
with their
engaged
sport.
type
So
of
that's
person. That makes sense. And you go there to embarrass them? Is that the goal?
it's wonderful. Yes. Yeah, it works quite well. But outside of that, I mean, I love to hike. I love to be in the outdoors, whether that's a relaxing day at the beach or climbing mountains or going hiking and trails. That's something I've done my whole life. Growing up, when I
Yeah.
was
You said you were raised in the Denver area, is that correct?
yeah, Yeah, when I grew up in Denver, I was a Boy Scout growing up, and so that kind of
Mhm.
threw me out into the wilderness.
Yeah.
And we in Denver they have what are called they call them 14ers. There's 52 4,000 foot plus peak, 14,000 foot plus peaks.
Oh yeah.
And so as a youth, I think I climbed 12 or 13 of those. It's amazing. You're on top of the world. You don't need any special equipment on these or anything. It's not like, going K2 or Everest or anything like that. But it's, there's not a lot of oxygen. They're tough hikes. But man, when you get up there, you're on top of the world. It's just amazing. So I've loved stuff like that. I've really enjoyed being in the outdoors, and so when I get some time, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a beautiful part of the country for sure. And California, Southern California is too. We lived there for 6
Yeah,
years. So now I go back to when you and I first met, and I don't remember exactly when we first met. Maybe you do. But I remember you inviting me to speak at, I think you were the regional for NCSL, and it was at
yeah,
Keysight
that's right.
in El Segundo.
Yeah, we did it.
But
I think that might have been the first place that we
well,
met. Howard was
we
at.
we knew each other before
Maybe at an
that.
NCSL before, but
Yeah, because I think we had our open house when we moved over to the Fullerton lab, and I'm thinking maybe you came through there. So that was 2014, 15. Anyway, I'm trying to
yeah,
remember back when we first met, but I don't remember the exact moment. But anyway, 2016 comes to mind because I spoke at that event, and Keysight had just acquired that facility recently before that. And that was a new foray for Keysight to get into expanding their capabilities beyond just electrical calibrations. So it was a nice lab tour. It was a beautiful day, had some good
yeah,
attendance,
it's a great day.
and really enjoyed that.
Okay,
Um,
John, let's find out some personal stuff. What is your favorite actor and what is your favorite movie?
My favorite actor and favorite movie. Oh boy. So Tom Cruise is pretty amazing. I don't know if other people feel the same way. He's had some great movies. We just saw his recent Mission Impossible, and he's done different roles. I think he does a great job. He has a strong appreciation for cinematography and people actually going to the movie theater and watching the movies.
yeah,
He feels real strongly about that and getting the kind of the original experience
Sure.
of watching a movie.
yeah, that Mission Impossible series is pretty fun to watch, pretty entertaining.
It's exciting. It's entertaining. I'm not a huge TV or movie guy. We, yeah, we watch a variety of different movies from, oh, geez, westerns to old movies with my kids. They actually like some of those old movies.
Oh, good. Oh,
The
that's
Cary Grant movies, and I
yes.
mean, and Frank Sinatra, and so I mean, just some incredible actors and good movies back in the day where things were done a little differently than they are
Yeah.
now. Speaking of
I'm
AI and how that's changing everything,
It's not that we go
the
to the
movies were pretty
theater
good.
all the time, but, it seems like in the last year or 2, there's not been a lot of great movies coming out.
Oh,
So Hollywood's kind of
not very
fallen on
many.
its face there, but I agree with you.
Yeah,
We
and maybe
tend to.
that's why Tom Cruise comes to mind, Top Gun Maverick, and
Yeah, yeah. We tend to
and
watch a lot
then
of the old
Mission Impossible.
programs. I think Chuck and I have said this many times, MeTV, Get TV, some of the, older shows, and I like the
Yeah,
older movies as well. My wife and I.
Bonanza,
So,
Gunsmoke, you know, Half
yeah,
Gun Will
yeah.
Travel.
Some of these like the actors are quite amazing. They can sing and they can dance and they can act, and we like a lot of those. We've converted even our kids to some of those old movies, and they'll bring their friends over. And
Nice.
if they, I think we got one VHS player still in the house, and they'll pop in one of our old movies and go
and
there.
it
So
doesn't break the
it's
tape. That's
fun.
amazing.
Not
We had
yet. We're very close because I think that thing's going to break, and I don't know that we can get it repaired. We'll have to
Yeah.
search out someone to do that.
Please be kind. Rewind.
Yes, there you go.
All right, so I want to ask you, what was your favorite personal vacation? Where would you recommend people going on vacation? Anywhere in the world?
We love Hawaii. We've gone to Hawaii many times, and
oh yeah.
my
I'm a
son's in
fan.
school there now. Lucky duck. Yeah, just we enjoy it because you can well, no matter what island you're on, we've been to several islands. We have family that live in Maui, and Kauai is probably our favorite island.
I love
We're
that
going to
too.
go there in April. And just it's relaxing. You get on island time. I can kind of decouple from work a little bit. You have the beach. You've got beautiful mountains and scenery. I mean, I think I'd go with Hawaii. We just set up a new laboratory last year in Singapore,
Oh,
and that's an amazing place to visit.
yeah, I've heard that
Singapore is quite beautiful.
from other guests that Singapore, Thailand are places to go.
A lot of our guests have recommended Singapore as well.
Mm-hmm.
Singapore's I do love Thailand. I've been to Thailand many times. I've been Japan. That would float near the top of the list. Thailand, I just love the food. I mean,
Yeah,
there's real good Thai food
yeah,
it's awesome.
Nice.
that's great.
Good.
All right, Chuck, back to you.
Well, one question as well is, do you have any mentors, alive, can be alive or it can have passed, that you have, gone back on and gave you inspiration for your career, your life, who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. My grandpa started an insurance company in Colorado. And so I grew up watching my grandpa start this business. My dad and his brother came on board. They took over the business. Watching them run a business was definitely inspirational and a good mentor. When I came out of college and was at Hart Scientific, Chris Jushaw was the president after Fluke acquired the company. And just an if I looked at someone on how to manage people and a mentor on how to run a business, manage people, meet the goals of the operation, yet develop and progress people in the company, he was fantastic at just teaching by example on how that was done. And he was my boss for many years and did the same thing. So I really got to experience that, because that's not an easy thing to do. To try to grow a company and to hit goals that the organization has, but really take care of the people at the same time. And I Chris taught me that's interwoven. If you can really build your people, naturally growth and good things will occur as a result. And so, but it sometimes is a little bit of a balance, but he did a great job showing that to me. And then Jack right now is our CEO, and you talked about how quickly we've grown. I honestly grown beyond my expectation when I was brought on board to help lead the organization. But I really feel this has always been in Jack's vision on what we can achieve.
Uh-huh.
And he's definitely been a great visionary in where Additel is going and where it needs to go. And I'm just grateful for him to trust and look at me and say, "Hey, help me execute this." And then we go off and with really good people here, we execute it. And so those are several that come to mind.
Those are
Nice,
really
nice.
great examples.
Yeah.
My grandpa taught me how to do customer service right off the bat. I remember my dad telling me one of the first big deals my grandpa did. He said, there were no contracts involved. It was a handshake after playing a round of golf, and they did the biggest deal for the business that they had done at that point. And that's that personal touch.
Oh yeah.
That's how you do customer service. That's how you make things happen.
Agree.
I
Sorry,
couldn't agree
didn't mean
more.
to diverge. Go ahead, Chuck.
No, I couldn't agree more with you. I preach it all the time to the staff at APT that without customer service, without talking to your clients, without working with them, forget the emails, forget the voicemails. You got to talk to people. And I think the bigger picture in life here is not just selling a product or servicing a client. We forgot how to do that, John. We forgot how to talk to people, have these one-on-one conversations, and we got to go back to that. We got to have more people talking to each other about stuff, not exchanging just emails and having things done. So the handshake, after a golf round, that's how I built NAPT as well. The same thing. A lot of my back and forth was talking to people, getting the support. And so I agree with you 100%, 100%. So
for our avid readers in the audience, do you have one or two book titles that you recommend people read, whether it's business or personal?
Okay. Yeah. Some ones for business come to mind. There's two that I found very useful I use with my managers and in helping them. It's been a great help to me. I'm a big fan of Pat Lencioni. He has a book that I've used several times in terms of when I'm looking at someone to maybe promote them into management. It's called The Motive. It's an easy read. He does a lot of storytelling in his books, which make it really easy to read. They're not big books, but it kind of explores why do you want to go into management and what makes a good manager. And if your motives aren't right, you're going to be miserable as an employee trying to be a manager, that you're not geared to do it if you're not doing it for the right reasons.
That's awesome. We'll have to read that.
That's a great book. And then Jim Collins has a book, Good to Great.
Oh,
fantastic book. That's been around for a long time.
yeah, I've read that.
Love that book. I think for business leaders or people that are looking to understand how best to run the organization, he talks about getting the right people on the bus, but then finding the right seat for those people on the bus.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just need to change seats rather than letting people go. That's an excellent book, and what's interesting about that book is it's born out of a research project they did. A lot of people go into writing a book with a theory and a concept, engraven in their mind on what needs to be the output of what they're talking about. They did this research project and let the chips fall where they may be, and then analyzed it, and they came out with a book based on the research they did, which I found was pretty fascinating. So
that's awesome. A
Nice.
couple of good recommends. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, believe it or not, unfortunately, John, as with every single podcast that we do, there's just never enough time where we can really explore and spend as much time
It does
as we
go
want.
quick. Yes.
Yeah, just like that. Every single podcast we have, I can't thank you enough. I'm sure Howard can't thank you enough either for coming on, sharing with us. I really enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to. I'm gonna get that book Motive, because I think I could learn something from that right now and where I'm at in my life. So I wrote it down, and I'm gonna go look it up and take your recommendation and read it. So I appreciate the heads up on a good read. So with that. So, Howard, before I give my spiel, anything that you want to say before we call it a day?
I love season 2. I love having these guests on that are running these companies, whether they're metrology related or related to serving our clients in industrial manufacturing. So, John, again, thank you so much for being here with us. It's been fantastic talking with you.
Appreciate you doing. I love the metrology community. It's wonderful. Thank you, guys.
We want to make sure we get our sponsors in. So if you need to prove your technical competency or need to for accreditation, then you need to roll in a proficiency test today. So with that being said, I want to thank everyone for listening to the podcast, and we'll look forward to you on the next podcast. Take care.
All right. How easy out.
Thank you.